Principals from various public schools in Newton spoke about how the cell phone policy is working with students who are actually happy to put their phones away for the day.
And so when we adopted the new electronic device policy at the beginning of the year, we indicated that we would review it at least once annually to take stakeholder feedback and just get a sense for what progress the policy enabled us to make. And so for secondary schools, we went about kind of learning about the experience of our students and educators by using surveys. And so we had one survey for middle school that I wrote, and we also had a survey that we distributed at high schools that was Greenfield. And we were able to kind of gauge some takeaways from the experience that our educators have had. And so I think overall, what I'll do is I'll just briefly summarize, the information, and then I would love to invite our middle school principals first to just share some of their anecdotal perspectives, and then also we can talk with Mr. Greenfield about the experience of high school teachers. And so I'd say overall, the feedback has been, very positive that the electronic device policy has made a positive impact overall. Starting off with the middle schools, we had 207 middle school staff members respond to our survey. And we used similar, like a Likert scale, where we had statements that educators could indicate the degree to which they agreed with the statement. And so there was a 4-point scale, and any answer that was a 3 or 4, we determined to be a favorable response, and anyone that was a 1 or 2, we said was not favorable. And so the majority of the staff do feel like the policy was effective. 95% of respondents indicated that it's effective, that students understand the expectations, and that students follow the expectations. So all of the respondents, there was 84%, was the minimum for any of those questions. Middle school staff did indicate that there is a degree to which students are still distracted somewhat outside of the class in hallways and bathrooms, and so middle school staff also identified some areas of potential growth. We used Yonder pouches this year, which we were approved at the start of the year, and I just want to thank our middle school principals for all the work they did with their teams to identify protocols to utilize the Yonder pouches and educate the community and work with our students who initially were not, many of them were not thrilled about the process. But just in the short months that we've had since January when it was implemented, our school staff and our students have really responded. The processes the evidence indicates that it's made a significant impact. And so at this point, I'd love some of our middle school principals to share their perspectives and what they've observed this year.
I'll start out. Jackie Van, principal of FA Middle School. We piloted this program the year before last, so the 2023-2024 school year. Our staff continue to love the program. I think that eliminates a lot of the distractions in the classroom. It also eliminates some of the negative interactions that used to happen over cell phones. All the cell phones were often away. When a student would inevitably, like all of us, have our cell phones close by, when they go off, they would take a look at it, and that would cause a negative interaction. And for that quick moment, you see it at home in your own households. I'm sure when children are doing their homework and they have their phone next to them, just like that, they're distracted from learning. Our teachers at Day are all in favor of it because of that, and I think they want to continue with that program. The students, Jean was talking with all of us about the need to survey students, and said, no need to. The first year there were 700 students marching at my door with a petition. We love the action civics, and inevitably I said, it's because we care about you and we're not changing our mind. This year, it's really interesting. Gina's joined our Student Advisory Council at Day, and they're kind of settling in. I see them talking to the incoming 5th graders and saying, it's not so bad. So there's some shift of like, there are adults that care about us and we feel like it takes the pressure off during the day. Jean already referenced the fact that outside of school, it's still a significant issue for our children. If you watch the dismissal at Day and all the other schools, they're frenetic to get at their phones. And it speaks to an addiction that we can talk to around electronics altogether. At Day, we've shifted now to focus on Chromebooks, which we talk about as well. We've eliminated Chromebooks in the morning because students, what they were doing on their phones, they were finding a way to do on school issued Chromebooks because they're much smarter than we are, of course. So it's something that we're focusing now at Day, the shift to, they're looking to replace their sort of their addiction to the phones with Chromebooks. So we're doing some boot camps in 6th grade, talking about this is a Newton Public School issued device and doing some work around that. Just to let students know that we're going to be meaningfully integrating technology, and there's some rules and guidance around that. But overall, the day staff would be happy for me to report that we want to continue being a cell phone free school, and we really do need the devices to help support that.
Yeah. John Hartunian at Oak Hill. Thanks everybody for letting us come talk tonight. I just want to echo what Jackie was saying. One thing that I want to sort of a shout out to the faculty. Our school has really worked on an off and away policy prior to the Yonder pouches coming, and it's continued with the Yonder pouches. It really takes the whole school community to be really consistent about applying these systems, and so. And that's why it's working. And that's why, again, kids know, the overwhelming majority of students just know it's not, you see a phone, we're taking the phone. And then that's the way it is. And it's made it much easier in terms of instruction. And I think, again, just like what Jackie was saying, I think the under pouches is just what we do now. It's like another little piece. It was an extra tool that helped our school. Like in bathrooms, there were some kids that would still try to bring them to the bathroom. Now it's even more difficult with the pouch. So, but again, I think it's enough, not kids not using their phones during the school day. So.
Kim Lysett, principal at Brown Middle School. I would echo what my colleagues have said and also add that in January, we started the pouches. We didn't have them at the beginning of the year. And I've noticed for the students, I think we have our bare beliefs, and the first bare belief is be here. And I think having the knowledge that they cannot access that phone, even, having it in their locker, they could still go, it was tempting, to go see if someone had texted them. So that's gone, and they don't have to think about that. It's not a distraction for them. And the other piece, Jackie said it already, the relationships between teachers and students are much more solid because they're not having the combat about the phone. I think that's the biggest win for it. I will say it's logistically challenging and we're making it work, but it's a little bit like TSA at the front door in the morning. Can't get by me till you lock it, and not a calculator. It's got to be a phone. But those are the things that we're working through with kids, and most of them have just kind of gone along with it, and it's been fine. So.
Thank you, everyone. I didn't introduce myself before. Gene Roundtree, Assistant Superintendent for Secondary Ed. So we also did some research at the high school level, which is also in the memo. I think that it's really important just to establish before we talk about how folks responded to the survey, just the differences in context. And so both of our high schools are open campus schools. They're much larger buildings, and students have more flexibility in their schedules than in middle school. And so it would be any operational process we would put in place to support the policy would have to be different, given the context. And so we are not using Yonder pouches. We just have an off and away policy. And the expectation is that teachers will ask their students to place their cell phones in cell phone holders that are positioned in the front of the room, and that students will not be using cell phones during instructional time. So I'll invite Mr. Grinfield to talk about, the survey results, and then we can talk about if anyone has any questions.
Sure. Rob Greenfield, history teacher and digital literacy coordinator at New North High School. I think policy implementation like this, I think for us, I can speak to New North, was always downstream from a cultural shift about phone usage. And by that, I mean the expectation that it's off and away during instructional time, that you come in instructional academic spaces and it's the use of the phone holder. For some special spaces around the building, it would be in the backpacks. But on the whole, I think anecdotally from staff, and I think in the survey data you see this also, which is that it's been a pretty dramatic positive shift in that direction. That especially with the younger grades, I think there's been a trickle up effect from the middle schools. The teachers are facing a lot less resistance. Conflict is down. I think that number of teachers that reported that conflict with students was a barrier to implementation was only 20%. I thought that number was really low compared to the last couple of years. I think if we surveyed that last year or 2 years before that, that number would have been a lot higher. And it was making teachers' lives very difficult in that way. And that's what I think teachers feared most when talking about phones with students, was that it was this initial kind of point of conflict. And so I found that to be very, very encouraging. And, talking with teachers, even today, it was, one teacher had talked about that she actually had to tell everybody to quiet down at the beginning of the class because people were talking to each other. And that was a new experience. And so it was like a privileged experience that she didn't know was a privilege. And so I think there's a lot of really, really good news on that front. I think there was the working group over the summer talked about this and kind of expected this, that there would be, because it is kind of a daily reminder for students to kind of have that default behavior to put the phone in the phone holder, that at some point during the year, there would be a little bit of a lull. And we definitely hit that right in the March kind of April stretch. And so we tried to reset that this year. And I think, there's more work to be done on that to get consistent usage of the phone holders throughout the year, to continue to assist and embolden teachers to use the phone holders. But on the whole, I think there's been a really positive cultural shift in the right direction.
Yeah, so I think we are pretty unanimous in making the recommendation that we continue the policy as written. Just acknowledging that both at the middle school and high school level, we have additional work we can do to ensure that all of our staff are working arm in arm with consistent practices to uphold the expectation.